How's it going, gang? Better than what's happening in New Orleans, I hope. Hey, it's Nate Houseman, your guide to the 21st century, and yeah, we're gonna try this again. Uh, I apologize for New Year's Eve. I figured out that I need to restart my computer after so many hours, or else my internet and my web browser is just gonna go to shit. So it's all refreshed and ready to go, and I'm ready to talk about the deep state and a whole lot of fuckery in New Orleans, in Las Vegas, and really everywhere around the world because it's go time. We had a nice little period between election night and now, but now the deep state is fighting back. If you want an analogy of what's going on, hat tip to Julie Green. She said, this is like when Pharaoh freed the Israelites. This is after Pharaoh freed the Israelites, but before the Red Sea. That's what we were in right now, and the Red Sea moment is upon us. The bad guys, the people, the criminal syndicate that's enslaved us for so long without us even knowing it is fighting back, and they're about to get annihilated because they wouldn't be so violent, they wouldn't be so rash if they weren't losing and desperate. So we're going to start with a post by the great Brian Cates here. He says, the military-industrial complex is hard at work trying to set Trump up so that when he gets into office, he has a massive terrorism crisis on his hands in which the military, the MIC, is going to attempt to browbeat him into handling this crisis the right way by invading another country to go after the terrorists who killed Americans. But Donald J. Trump is not George W. Bush or Barack Obama. He is going to go after those who killed Americans in America using their ISIS proxies. But those evil people don't live in the Middle East. Many of them live in the Washington, D.C. area and near Langley, Virginia. You know it's in Langley, right? This is the height of treason. To move from using your terror proxies to drive wars and conflicts overseas, to keep your MIC in business, to bring it here into the homeland and making war on your fellow Americans. Trump fully intends to expose what they've been doing. Every one of the CIA deep state people behind this NOLA attack and other upcoming attacks has committed treason against the United States of America. And after they exposed and tried by a military tribunal and convicted, each one of them should be executed by firing squad and buried in a pauper's grave as a warning for all time. I don't care if I'm saying this on YouTube. If YouTube has a problem with this, that's their problem because the truth hurts. Now, we're going to get into it. I got collections of tweets about the New Orleans New Year's Eve attack. I got posts about the Cybertruck explosion near Trump Tower in Las Vegas. I got posts on a lot of attacks around the world and recently. And we're going to tie it all together because the deep state intelligence agencies are behind this. I mean, there's no hiding it now. The great people posting on Twitter and Truth Social are on the case. Now, I want to bring all this information to you, and if you want to support my work, my efforts, there are several ways you can do it. One way is you can join my locals page for $5 a month. You'll get access to exclusive content, and you'll be able to join a conversation. Like I'm a paying member of a couple other locals pages like Salty Cracker and Raging Golden Eagle, and those places are absolute blast. Like I get to post memes, I get a lot of laughs. I laugh at other people's memes. It's a ripper on time, and I want that for you guys. I want to be that kind of. I want to offer that kind of awake, based, knowledgeable, witty sort of environment for you guys. So, for the price of a cup of coffee per month, you can join my community. And speaking of coffee, I'm a proud and very effective member, referral partner for Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee is one of those real companies in the United States, not some corporate, publicly traded Wall Street effery that's no one cares about shareholder value. I mean, Blackout Coffee, they have investors, but they have, they actually make a good product. You can order online. They're not some, you know, phony, you know, Con Inc. outfit like Black Rifle Coffee. Blackout Coffee is the way to go. And I treat myself to Blackout Coffee every now and then. I wear their cap, I wear their hat around town, and it just makes me feel good. And if you have ADHD like I do, you need dopamine from somewhere. And what better way than coffee rather than, other destructive behaviors? So take advantage of that and let's get started. So let's go to my bookmarks. And we're going to talk about the New Orleans attack first. DC Drano says, well, look who donated to Democrats on Act Blue, then drove a truck through a crowd in New Orleans with an ISIS flag. And yeah, they tried to cover up the ISIS flag, but the Citizen Journalist found it. So it was Shamshud Jabbar, the same dipshit, terrorist who killed 15 people last I heard. DC Drano says again, if you're telling me New Orleans normally hosted New Year's celebrations on Bourbon Street without steel barriers, and the terrorists somehow knew about this temporary window of reduced security, something smells fishy here. And he's reacting to this post by Raw's Alerts. The city of New Orleans announced that officials had been in the process of replacing Bourbon Street bollards ahead of Super Bowl 54 before the deadly terror attack occurred. So, okay, that's interesting. Setup. Phoenix Ammunition says, the CEO of Allstate Insurance just gave a quick message before the start of the Sugar Bowl. That was, I believe, today. It was supposed to be January 1st, but of course it got delayed. He said, we need to keep the victims of New Orleans terrorist attack in our thoughts and prayers, and also we need to work to decrease divisiveness and accept people's imperfections. The hell? He wants us to accept people's imperfections, such as being religiously radicalized to run people over and shoot them. Bizarre statement that had literally nothing to do with what happened. It's plastic platitudes like this that cheapen the phrase thoughts and prayers. I had a video about the Trump assassination, and I said thoughts and prayers do work. You got to do it right, though. You got to be in agreement with the guy, and you got to mean it. This asshole does not mean it. Last Refuge posts this. They're quoting someone, and just look at all the information we're pulling up thanks to Twitter. You can put it in bookmarks and file it in folders. It's marvelous. This person says, my daughter is a paramedic in New Orleans and was stationed nearby this morning when the attack happened. She was on the scene within minutes and tended to one of the policemen who was wounded and transported him back to the hospital. She was right there by the truck, that would be the terrorist's truck, tending to the gunshot wounds from the terrorist. What I found curious in her description of the event was that several FBI agents showed up about 10 minutes after the incident and then told them there was a bomb in the cooler in the truck. My daughter called me at 5 o'clock this morning and was telling me this before the information about the bomb was made public. The thing I keep wondering is how the FBI knew the bomb was in the truck and why they didn't act to evacuate everyone from the vicinity of the truck. They were either reckless or knew that the bomb was not viable. Or maybe they knew they had something else in mind. These events all seem to have a pattern suggesting that the FBI knew much more before it happened. I suspect that we will see more of this at both the New Orleans and Las Vegas events. I hope it gets exposed. So law enforcement, did you hear that the chief of police in New Orleans was previously a police commander in San Francisco. She got fired in San Francisco and got a job in New Orleans. Maybe I'm wrong about San Francisco. I know it's somewhere in California, but it just figures. Wouldn't it be perfect? Wouldn't it just make sense if she was from a district that had a George Soros district attorney? So someone from a reporter from the New York Post was able to tour Jabbar's house before the FBI went in. That's according to Jenny Trayer. The FBI didn't show up at the Enola suspect's address until 1 p.m. today. We were on the scene before. No one came out of the home or answered the door. And Jerry Delaney says, the New York Post came to Jabbar's house before the FBI did is insane. Here's another clue that there may have been that this terror attack was allowed. Hours after more than a dozen people were murdered in a brutal terrorist attack resulting in the Sugar Bowl being put on ice, Louisiana's governor is celebrating by eating a fancy dinner and tweeting about it. Yes, Governor Jeff Landry ate dinner tonight in New Orleans. Proud to be part of this incredibly resilient city. See everyone at the game tomorrow. Okay, that's in bad taste, but that's to be expected from someone who is so adept at climbing this, at social climbing, that they just treat everyone as a stepping stone. I mean, very few people seem to be able to make it to the highest ranks of political power, business success, or really any kind of organization without really treating people like shit. I mean, I know there are good people. Obviously, Trump is one of them. Obviously, Elon is one of them. Obviously, RFK is one of them. But you have to be some sort of you have to be really dialed into the Holy Spirit to succeed in a way that the world likes and also in a way that pleases God. Because we've seen before, King David did it. It's possible. But you got to be highly in tune. I mean, the fact that Trump, his circumstances in life led him to this position, not just, his own character, without, with him keeping his, moral character and his dedication to the United States of America and the it being a land of opportunity, he's definitely been guided by something beyond this world. Now, from the NOLA attack to the Cybertruck attack, which happened outside of Trump Tower. Isn't it perfect that a Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside of Trump Tower in Las Vegas right after the H-1B controversy? Are we talking about the H-1B controversy again anymore? Are we talking about the drones anymore? No, that was a nice distraction to keep everyone off of Jay-Z's lawsuit, wasn't it? But what we're seeing is a rollout of exposures. This is what's been going on since the fortified election of 2020. Now, Mr. Guns and Gear, he's got a great YouTube channel and Rumble channel where he reviews guns, and he is very knowledgeable on firearms here. He has this to say. I rewatched the footage of the Cybertruck pulling up to the Trump Hotel and Casino, where the truck sits for 17 seconds prior to the explosion. 17 seconds, that's... You know what the 17th letter of the alphabet is? And why Trump is so fond of the number 17? Think about it. Police have stated that MSG Matthew Livelsberger, that's the person who allegedly set off the car bomb, shot himself in the head with the 50 AE Desert Eagle. If you've ever shot a Deagle in 50 AE, review is up on my channel if you want to see it in action. You know the flash is epic. The model shown in the police footage is quite literally the flashiest model they make. At no point in the two videos I've seen Do you see any flash or hear any bang after pulling up? So, was he dead before pulling up? At this point, I'd say that's probable. Then the question is, did he program the destination into the Cybertruck, or did someone else? I'd imagine that it should be pretty easy to question for the folks at Tesla to answer with the way those vehicles are monitored in virtually real time. Yeah, I've watched reviews. I've seen reviews of the Desert Eagle. It's a very cool looking gun, but it's a very unreliable gun. I mean, it looks cool when Deadpool is slinging it, but most people who actually have fired it know it's very cumbersome. It jams quite often, and you're better off with another brand. So it's like someone wants us to find out that there's someone behind the curtain. I mean, if you read John Harold, aka Patel Patriot, if you read his blog on Substack, he has mentioned the phenomenon of Judas steers or Judas goats. These are like people who are part of an organization and they lead it towards certain actions or operations that either make them look bad or sabotage them. So he wonders if they're Judas goats within the Biden administration and within the intelligence agencies who are like, we've got secret white hats that have infiltrated these organizations and are leading them to be exposed to the American public and from the other world. DC Drano, again, says, now that we know the Las Vegas suspect was found with a bullet in his head, I see two possible scenarios. He shot himself, he was planning to commit suicide and didn't want to risk being burned alive, or two, he was shot by someone else, and the Tesla was autopilot navigated to the Trump Hotel. So, in agreement with Mr. Guns and Gear. Eric Veteran 8888, another great gun reviewer on YouTube, says, I refuse to believe that MSG Levels Booger, a soldier with a ton of training and experience, didn't know that IED design was going to suck complete ass. Yeah. Elon Musk has bragged, hey, they picked the wrong vehicle to make a car bomb with because it kept integrity and kept the explosion fire upward away from most people. Green Brain Nap Time thinks Levelsburger is a patsy. The question is for who and what purpose. Let's break down why. I think this is true going through everything that we know. A thread. So let's look through this here. There's still a lot we don't know about Matthew Levelsburger, the alleged Vegas bomber, but here's what we do know, and that does and does not add up. He recently made the E8 list for MSG in 2023 in an 18Z slot, which means he was a Special Forces soldier, and if he pinned, would still have been on active duty. This also means he was well within his team sergeant time. He was an 18E, Special Forces Communications Sergeant, and then went to the Fox course to become an 18F, Intelligence Sergeant, before making the E8 list. There's a lot of jargon. Some of it I don't know because I was never in the service. But let's go through. Let's keep on. He also apparently was small unmanned aircraft systems qualified, which implies he had training as a drone pilot. I'm submitting that the Freedom of Information Act request for his military records. He said, this person says, I'm submitting a Freedom of Information Act request for his military records, but expect that to take some time. He rented the Cybertruck from Turo, the same company that the New Orleans terrorists used. And we're going to talk more about that. The back of the truck was full of mortar fireworks, gasoline canisters, and campfire fuel canisters, which are all combustible, but would not be ideal for an explosion to create maximum damage. Here's the crazy part. With the level of experience that he had, how does it make sense that he would rent a Cybertruck, which are known to be bulletproof, and fill it with ineffective explosives that he would know would not actually damage much, if anything? The front windows of the building did not even break. The other crazy part, his wife, Sarah Levelsburger, has made multiple anti-Trump posts on her social media from years and years ago. So, if he was radicalized, if this was all an attempt to hurt people and destroy a Trump building, why would he go about it in such an incompetent and ineffective manner? Lots not adding up here. We'll add more as information comes to light. Green Brain Nap Time continues saying, if you were an SF dude and knew a Special Forces dude and knew him and have any information, feel free to direct message. I understand anonymity requirements, so don't worry about that. Just want to fit the pieces together to this weird puzzle. I'm having trouble finding anyone that actually knew him, just guys that knew of him. Update about Sarah, as pictured above. She is his ex-wife, and they've been divorced for about 10 years. More information coming out. Greenberry nap time is continuing here. This is looking like a setup. Greenberries close to him are positive he would not do such a thing. Matt Tardio says, I don't think I can read all that here. Then he says, holy shit, we have a major, and he's referring to a cultural husbandry. We have a major problem. Matthew Livelsberger, a.k.a. Matt Berg, changed his signal safety number just before the explosion, and then his photo and safety number changed after the explosion. Law enforcement sources say that Livelsberger was on active duty with the Army, serving in Germany, and was on leave in Colorado at the time of the incident. His wife hadn't heard from him in several days prior to the incident, the source said. The unit source, an individual serving in Germany, has made the following claims and provided the linked images in the first post. Number one, he was a Trump and Elon supporter. Not radically so, but a solid supporter. Number two, his signal safety number changed once before the explosion, and his photo and safety number changed after the explosion. His first safety number change makes sense because he lives in Europe and would have flown from the European Union to the US. If he did that around December 29th, then the first safety number change makes sense, as U.S. citizens who work in the EU and fly back and forth for vacation or work often will use a U.S. SIM or a different phone for convenience. Different cell company in Europe versus U.S., different SIM, etc. So they're talking about cell phone SIM cards. If he didn't fly on or about the 29th, that brings number 3 into question. Number 5. Elon says he unlocked the truck after the explosion to help law enforcement. He claims it only locked due to the force of the blast. However, if it can be remotely unlocked, then it can be remotely locked. Just a random thought I had, and probably unrelated. Number 6. The individual stationed in Germany also tried to make a not safe for work Reddit community to get to the bottom of this, but within 2 minutes of his first post, the same message, it was banned. The individual concluded by saying, something fishy is going on and I can't explain it. I'm deeply concerned about the impending series of red flag attacks in the USA. Be kind to your neighbors. So, what that means is we need to stay strapped. I bought my Glock just months after the terrorist attack in Israel, October 7, 2023. I've been practicing with it. I've gone to the range with it. And I've gotten comfortable with it. And I carry it. Continuing on with our Cybertruck posts here, MJ Truth Ultra says, very convenient his military ID and passport were found to confirm his identity. Just like 9/11. Yeah, they found passports around around Ground Zero, which they should have been burned to ash in that explosion. My gut tells me a corpse was self-driven to the scene. Rich G says he was a big Trump supporter, but his wife was completely anti-Trump. Yeah, we covered that. Turns out they've been divorced. It doesn't make sense. Why would he choose that location if he loves Trump so much? He's either dead or someone is using his identity. Colin Rugg says, Justin, family of accused Trump hotel truck bomber Matthew Livelsberger says he was a big Trump supporter. Questions it. Odd. Uncle of Livelsberger said the told the Independent that he was confused by the explosion because he could blow up half the hotel if he really wanted to do damage. He used to have all patriotic stuff on Facebook. He was 100% loving the country. He loved Trump. He was always a very, very patriotic soldier, a patriotic American. It's one of the reasons he was in the Special Forces for so many years. It wasn't just one tour of duty. Matt was a very skilled warrior. He would be able to make it if it was him. And if he did this, he would have been able to make a much more sophisticated explosive than using propane tanks and camping fuel. Some of it doesn't make sense. When he had the skills and ability to make something more, let's say, efficient, his skills were enormous from what he has been taught in the military. He could have fashioned a bomb that would have obliterated half of that hotel if he seriously wanted to hurt others. So that's very fishy. And ending the section with DC Drano saying, turns out extremism in our military isn't coming from the right, it's coming from the left. So he's quoting Proud Army Brat, and Proud Army Brat posts, 37 Matt Livelsberger is the Colorado man that exploded the Tesla while parked outside Trump Tower in Vegas. He was a 19-year Army veteran and still on active duty. He was a Special Forces intel sergeant. His partner was very anti-Trump, per her Facebook posts. She also posted about Livelsberger going out to rock music concert, holidaying in Puerto Rico, and spending time with dogs. We need answers. So I need to organize these tweets better because one answers the other before I even get the other. But I mentioned my Glock and how I've been practicing with it. And I'm going to show you how I've been practicing with it. I got my setup here. This is a Glock 19, best-selling handgun of all time. Great if you're great all-around, general purpose, all-purpose handgun. Good for concealed carry, good for home defense, good for, all sorts of things. Glocks are striker fired, which means they have a certain setup that's pretty simple to use. It's, the Glock is a great first handgun. The thing about, and a great way to practice using handgun is dry firing. I got a trigger discipline. Keep my finger off the trigger until I'm ready to shoot. Dry firing is just a way to practice drawing and aiming your gun when it's unloaded. You can do this around the house. You can do this with targets set up around the house. You can even do it with doorknobs or light switches if you want to practice your aiming. The thing with striker-fired pistols is, though, once you cock it, pull the trigger. Can't pull the trigger again until you reset it again. Which is why I use the dry fire mag, which is another great product that I am a referral partner for. So dry fire mag, you put it in your firearm like so, and dry fire mags come in different models for different models of gun. So dry fire is they have models for, let's see here, Shop All Products. They got them for Glocks. They got them for Smith & Wesson. They got them for I think Sig Sauer. A lot of the major brands that sell that make striker fired, pistols. Now, cocked it, locked. It's not a real mag. There's no ammunition here, but I can shoot this repeatedly, like you would in a real self-defense situation. You can keep this in your holster. You can keep this in your sling bag and practice drawing the right way, whether you're at home, whether in your vehicle. There you go. Now, a dry fire mag with the laser pointer aiming setup costs around $300. When you consider how much ammunition costs and the cost of going to a range each day and going to and just using your gun all that much, it's going to cost money, and you're going to see that the dry fire mag pays for itself. Now, there's no substitute for getting, getting practice at the range. You need to know how your gun feels when you fire it, and you need to get comfortable with it. But dry firing at home is going to get you even more comfortable, just drawing and such. So it's good to have both, but it's having a dry fire mag is definitely worth it, and it'll extend your practice and make you better prepared. Now, what do the New Orleans attack and the Cybertruck attack have in common? Because they definitely do have stuff in common. And I'm trying to get back to my folders here. Joe Lang points out the two attacks are definitely related. Both have Fort Bragg connections. Yeah, the Jabbar and Livelsberger have both been assigned to Fort Bragg. Let's read what Joe Lang has. Both have Fort Bragg connections. That is not coincidence. Fort Bragg is at the center of special operations forces, and the CIA is heavily involved. These are not coincidences. In recent years, whistleblowers have alleged that the use of hard drugs is widespread among special operators. 3 unnamed Navy SEALs told CBS in 2017 that various teammates of theirs had tested positive for cocaine, methamphetamine, MDMA, and heroin, and that the substance abuse problem was growing. In 2014, a Navy SEAL named Angel Martinez Ramos pleaded guilty after being arrested at Miami's airport with 10 kilos of cocaine in his carry-on. In 2015, former SEAL James Matthews got pulled over in New Jersey, towing a trailer loaded with $1.4 million worth of marijuana. In 2018, former senior Special Forces Sergeants Daniel Gould and Henry Royer were busted trying to import punching bags that had been gutted and packed with cocaine from Colombia. These are highlights of a specifically lengthier list. The CIA has been behind the worldwide drug trafficking since World War II. Yeah, the whole war on drugs is just a pretense for the CIA taking out their competition. The CIA has been behind the worldwide drug trafficking since World War II. They use drugs in their MK Ultra program to create assassins. We're going to talk about Intel BS a little later. The deaths began in January 2020 when a 19-year-old Texan's body was discovered in his bunk in an advanced state of decomposition. The Army has not disclosed the cause, and 1 year later, the investigation remains ongoing. The same is true in the case of a young Ohioan, a Green Beret candidate, who in March was found unresponsive in his barracks. In late May, a 21-year-old enlisted man from California was killed, beheaded, in fact, while on a camping trip with 6 of his fellow paratroopers. Once again, no arrests have been made in the case. In November, yet another soldier, a 24-year-old Texan, was discovered unresponsive in his bunk with no further details from the Army. By the end of the year, there have been 21 suicides at Fort Bragg, more than any other U.S. military post. So this is all at Fort Bragg, according to RollingStone.com. A whole lot of mysterious deaths from Fort Bragg of players that probably didn't want to go along with what was happening there. The CIA has always trafficked drugs for off-the-books funding. There are a lot of dark and corrupt happenings at Fort Bragg, and I think the CIA has declared war against Trump with these 2 terrorist attacks in fear of its coming inauguration. It's probably going to get worse. The CIA is a desperate, caged animal. They've been behind the attempts on Trump's life, and I think the ones responsible are being hunted in the background. MK Ultra fully activated. Now, lots of people have suggested that MK Ultra is also behind, dare I say it, mass shootings, like school shootings. They've talked about the connection between school shooters and SSRIs, which are those like drugs that I think they're antipsychotic or they're like antidepressant. I don't know much about SSRIs, but you see them a lot with school shooters. Now, continuing. Shipwreck points out that Chelsea Clinton, Bill and Hillary's daughter, sits on the board of directors for the company that owns Turo, the car sharing app that both the New Orleans terrorist truck and the Tesla truck were rented through. Wouldn't be a solid conspiracy unless Clinton was involved. Let's I've talked about Bronfman before. Must be nice having a politically connected family that gets you on the boards of big corporations, and you get a whole lot of stock options and investments for just being someone's kid. Yeah, I'm talking about Mitt Romney's kid. Did I see a living tree in there? Shout out to Shipwreck. She's a fellow Iowan. Uh, Julie Green's a fellow Iowan. There's a great gun tuber on YouTube called Honest Outlaw. He's a fellow Iowan. I'm just really chuffed about my state. I just want to mention that here. Now, Eric Doherty let's summarize for the it's a coincidence believers. Two vehicle attacks on the same day within hours of each other. Both vehicles rented via Turo. Both suspects U.S. veterans. Both suspects served at the same military base. You gotta be freaking kidding me, right? And Catard brings up Right Angle News Network mentioning this. Breaking. The suspects of yesterday's attacks on Bourbon Street in New Orleans and Trump Tower in Las Vegas both served at Fort Bragg, the same military base Ryan Ralph visited over 100 times before attempting to take Donald Trump's life. Yeah, he was the golf course gunman. Like I said, I think there are some Judas goats in these organizations inducing them to fuck up. I mentioned this already. The governor of Louisiana, yucking it up at the fancy restaurant, Prime Rib. Prime Rib sounds really good right now, but Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, let's continue here. Now, now's a good time to talk about Intel BS. The Intel agencies. I just call them Intel as an umbrella term. We're talking about CIA, FBI, jury's out at NSA. Like I've heard talk that um, NSA might be secret white hats, and Trump he hasn't mentioned who he wants to run the NSA, and he's like saving that for last. He's saving that for maybe his big guns. But you also got other countries' intelligence agencies like the Mossad, like MI6. You know, I've said before, anyone who's like acting all anti-Semitic and saying, "Oh, the Jews are behind this whole, worldwide conspiracy." Well, which Jews? I mean, I made the analogy before. Blaming all Jews for the world's problems is like blaming all Italians for the crimes of the mafia. Of course, there's a Jewish, a very ancient Jewish evil organization that's infiltrated so many of our institutions. That doesn't mean all Jews are bad. That doesn't mean all Israelis are bad. If we got a corrupt intel deep state in our country, it just stands to reason there's a corrupt deep state intel or body in Israel and every other country. So, but let's come back to Brian Cates here. And he's saying, here we go. To stop them from coming here, we need to fight them over there, like we did after 9/11. I'm old enough to remember 9/11. I'm old enough to remember the Iraq War. I was all in supporting the Iraq War because none of us knew better. We do now. Military industrial complex goes cha-ching for another 20 years. This is their plan. Set up attacks here against Americans, get the public on board with new forever wars, and launch new military operations overseas. They're going to attempt to build a fast consensus and tie Donald Trump's hands so he doesn't look weak for not wanting to go after the terrorists who did this. Oh, but he is going to go after the terrorists who did this. It's just that the real terrorists driving all of this behind the scenes aren't who the people still sleeping behind in the Matrix think they are. Pay attention to which principled conservatives in the U.S. Congress scream and yell at Trump for balking at new military overseas operations to get the terrorists. They're really going to get upset when Trump starts declassifying stuff and millions more Americans wake up to what's been really going on. And then a couple hundred people get arrested, tried by the military, and then get shot. Rough, but necessary transition to ensure nobody ever pulls the shit again. And he's responding to supposed Senator Lindsey Graham. All Americans are heartbroken this New Year's Day because innocent people enjoying their lives were killed or injured in a senseless, cowardly act of terrorism. May God grant healing to the wounded and comfort to the families of the fallen. Well, okay, he's saying the right things, but we know he's full of rat shit. Over the last several years, we've allowed radical Islam to regain its footing in places like Afghanistan. That never leads to inspired attacks against our homeland and that of our allies. To protect America, we have to keep radical Islam beaten down throughout the world. If not, we'll pay a heavy price. Now, as a born-again Christian and a soldier for the kingdom of God, I agree that Islam is not it. But, well, we're not going to convert them just by use of force. The way you convert people to Christianity is through testimony and saying what God has done for you. I learned that at church. I've learned that from lots of people, and lots of churches get that wrong, but I digress. Now, but really, all these ideologies are just fronts for the worldwide criminal syndicate. You've got radical Islam, you got communism, you got Nazism. You've got all these ideologies are just smokescreen. They're just disguises for really cluster B personality disorders who crave power and who have no regard for human life. You got your narcissists, you got your psychopaths, you got your sociopaths, you got your Machiavellians. This is the real ideology. Just no regard for human life or any emotional, intelligence. Trying to get back to where I was here. Razor Fist points out Same as he's responding to this post by L. Listen, I don't have some mind blowing insight into anything going on right now, but I do think it's interesting that they immediately covered up the ISIS flag in New Orleans. But when a teenager drove a U-Haul into the gate of the White House, they laid out the swastika flag openly. Yeah, that's interesting. Roosevelt's response is saying, same as it ever was. After the JFK assassination, all reference to Oswald's Marxism and KGB connections were expunged from police and FBI reports, as it was inconvenient to LBJ's Cold War stance. Even McKinley's assassin was called an anarchist rather than what he actually was, which was probably a tool of the bankers. I've talked about William McKinley. He was a big fan of tariffs. He is Trump's role model in reforming the tax system. McKinley was assassinated. JFK was assassinated over silver certificates. That's one reason. Lincoln introduced greenbacks. Ronald Reagan wanted to audit the gold in Fort Knox, and he was shot. He survived, but he was shot. And McKinley, if you go up against the criminal syndicate's monetary system, financial system, you get shot at. I think the only president actually successfully took on the bankers was Andrew Jackson. He was shot at, but he succeeded in abolishing the Second Central Bank of the U.S. Ian Carroll, I'm going to read this first, then we're going to listen to his video. He says, I went to a secret military base in Hollywood that had nothing to do with the coincidental acid rock movement started by the children of military and intelligence community leadership right down the road in Laurel Canyon in the 60s. Just another house on the street. So we're going to... This video is 5 minutes long, but we're going to strap in here. Not the Beach Boys. I remember 2009, 2008, Obama was installed. I remember rock music just fell off the radar. Like, no one talked about it anymore. And electronic dance music exploded. And it just seemed so forced. Do you mean to tell me the big movements in music industry, popular music, are manufactured? Well, that makes sense, because how else does Jack White get popular? But let's continue. Ian Carroll's one of my new role models. I'm telling you. Looks like he's just reminiscing right now, but I wanna keep listening because he might say something important. I have not listened to this beforehand, so easy as hell. Don't tell me it's just smog. You know who else? You know who the hippie generation was? It was the boomers. You know how out of touch the boomers are to the plight of young people in this economy? I'll bet part of it's the drugs. I'll bet part of it's the polio vaccine, but that's I digress. That's a topic for another. That's another topic of discussion here. Okay, Ian Carroll again talks about COINTELPRO. You expose yourself by inventing claims and connections like this, bro. For everyone reading this, study COINTELPRO. The number one tactic has always been to divide and sow doubt and suspicion against the community, and with rumors, false allegations, blackmail, and confusion. Think for yourself. So he's responding to Mr. Kaz. Big fan of your content, Ian. Well, he's responding to Ariel, who I've referred to in the past, but I dropped like a bad habit once he started dissing Rudy Giuliani. But he's saying, no, this is the Flynn Network. Debadging and demonetization on X continue to affect accounts critical of Elon Musk's pro H-1B visa stance. And that's who Ian Carroll is responding to. So, yeah. X has a problem with these so-called, COINTELPRO. These false MAGA, conspiracy theorists who say they got the dirt, but they're spreading doubt and suspicion among real white hats. I had questions about General Flynn because he kind of had a weird outburst during an interview on the X-22 report, but that's been cleared up. And General Flynn has been vetted by President Trump himself, by Q, so he's one of the good guys. Ariel has been dissing General Flynn for many moons, and I wasn't sure about whether I could trust Ariel. And when he started disrespecting Mayor Giuliani, that was it for me. So I might share Ariel's stuff in passing to make a point. Otherwise, we do not need to trust him. Colonel Towner Watkins has been talking about Operation Gladio, and I think does this post talk about it? No, but they've got other ones we're going to go through. They say the comments on here are hilarious. Talking about X accounts that have been demonetized and exposed as intelligence assets. The comments on here are hilarious. X said that if you were engaged in a group that is behind the scenes, colluding to drive narratives, and being paid to become the new version of the Mockingbird media, that your account will lose its blue checkmark and your X monetization would stop because you are being paid by others to produce Mockingbird talking points. Then, when it's demonstrated to everyone on here that people engaged have been doing the exact thing as the CIA Mockingbird media, we're talking about the corporate media, network news, cable news, yeah, even Fox, CIA, Mockingbird media. Everyone comes out and blames X and not the bullshit accounts that lied to you, deceived you, and became what they said they were fighting against. You were fed bullshit you wanted to hear, that you wanted to believe was true, a narrative packaged as truth. You failed to exercise discernment. Instead of taking a second and ask how you were tricked again, you attack X for revealing the trick. That isn't even the most important part of this revelation. Every person who appeared on these people's platform, every issue they so-called exposed, like Ariel, who I'm not going to trust again, will be questioned because when a discredited person embraces a real issue and then are exposed as a scammer, the real issue truth gets thrown out with the baby's bathwater. There's some of these people who had their minions contact me about coming on their platform and discussing Operation Gladio. I declined because there were very real warning signs of who they were. The number one warning sign is this. If the majority of their presentation is emotionally charged, preys on people's emotions, and misleads people by misstating historical facts to increase the emotional impact, they're exercising propaganda just like Mockingbird Media has done to you for decades. So there. Here's another one by Colonel Tanner Watkins responding to General Flynn. Let's start with General Flynn's post first. The idiots in the FBI don't want you to call this a terrorist attack. That is what it is. Now that we're past that, the most important aspects are what is not currently being reported. The White House is telling the mayor of New Orleans to stop calling it a terrorist attack after the mayor said it was. Why? The media needs to pin them all down. What was not known? What was known? Again, it is not what you call it in the end that matters. What matters is if there was intelligence prior to some agency or department and it wasn't acted upon. A failure of decision makers is not a failure of intelligence. Prevention is what we shoot for. That is what the hard work of intelligence does. If you don't know it and hunt down every lead, then you end up in a reactive, after the fact mode. This, tragically, is where we are for what should have been a very joyous occasion. Members of my family were working along Bourbon Street last night at midnight. Another big question, what's next, and are the people with knowledge rapidly cross-leveling intelligence to prevent the next attack? And God help anyone inside our current government or anyone who used to be in our government still working with elements inside that have any knowledge of these events and have said or done nothing. This knowledge will be discovered and appropriate action taken. Enough said. Now, Colonel Tanner Watkins responds. Oh, shit, I lost this. Colonel Tanner Watkins responds to this and says, well, let's start with the CIA, which pretends to be an intelligence agency when in fact it's never been an intelligence agency. It has, since its beginning, been an election interfering, covert operations, paramilitary arranging, coup sponsoring, etc. machine. None of these operations has made the U.S. citizens safer, so who are they really working for? An international syndicate. They're currently pissed off because you voted for the wrong team. They get really nasty when you do that. They create January 6 events, install presidents like Biden, Pinchot, Diem, etc., that disappear their people, torture them, assassinate them, with no knock raids or helicopter rights nowhere that you don't return from. Oh, she's talking about Pinochet. We should have noticed when they were practicing on all the other countries. Now it's here. Alpha Warrior is talking about Lovelsberger, the supposed Cybertruck bomber. What do they have to say about this? Special forces vet sacrificed himself to stop a mass attack. Was it MK Ultra 2.0? What if a veteran special forces operative realized he was being manipulated by the latest evolution of MK Ultra technology? In his final moments, the only way to prevent a mass casualty event he was being forced to carry out against his own control and force an investigation outside the MSM narrative was to end his own life. Okay, that's speculation, but let's tread carefully. Voice to Skull Tech has been around for decades. Imagine what they're working with now. Or you can just trust the media's version. He was just a broken soldier who went rogue. This is psychological warfare. And I have seen video, I believe I've shared before, of direct sonic sound projection. There was some professor, there's a video of a professor from however many years ago directing music at the students. Only students who were in a certain line from the emitter were able to hear that music. I know I saw it on Next 22 Report when Dave was talking about directed energy weapons. Joey Dark Delight has another take on Louisville's burger. He says, so a Green Beret from Colorado Springs, where I served and did comms with clearance, did this? Bullshit. How do you make veterans like myself look like domestic terrorists? You destroy their lives, give us PTSD, make us homeless, then call us domestic terrorists. Lying motherfuckers. I'm walking with the Lord for a while. Y'all better fucking get in your head that if they come from vets, it's game over. This is the setup. They have been trying since 2008. Yeah, since Obama. I know a couple vets, personally. They're absolute dipshits. But I have met 1,000 times many more vets who are on the level of law-abiding citizens who care about the American people. So, there you go. Now, General Flynn, again, he's talking about, did you hear about that supposed CIA whistleblower who's talking about 1,000 sleeper cells in the United States? Let's open this post here and then see what General Flynn has to say. In recent news, I pray that people start paying attention to those who are sharing accurate information with the potential to impact lives. This is not meant to brag, but I've had numerous discussions with Sarah Adams, Scott Mann, and legend from the Sean Ryan Show to help inform the American public and people abroad about the growing threat of an enemy that is not being taken seriously. It's heartbreaking this information is becoming more real with each passing day. Please, if you would, kindly share this with those around you. And I don't know if you saw the podcast. Some female CIA officer claims that there are 1,000 sleeper cells of foreign terrorists in the United States. It could be. I mean, we've all seen these dipshits coming through the southern border and a few from the northern border, but let's read what General Flynn has to say. Be cautious of all-knowing, all-seeing oracles. I strongly believe in the concept of the wisdom of the crowd. That's a good book, by the way. The agency likely still teaches their analysts. When people pop up out of nowhere with information that appears very accurate, seemingly too accurate, we should all ask the question, where have they been over the past few years? If they have suddenly seen the light and come over to the right side of history, great, I'm all for them. But if there are other unknown reasons they suddenly pop up, we need to know those too. For instance, were they afraid for their life and feared coming forward with, for instance? That would be understandable. Bottom line, it's not oracles we seek, it's the truth. I believe that is your point. Thanks for all you're doing to expose the truth. Like so many podcasting citizen journalists among us, and there are many really good ones, we the people can discern information as long as it's presented clearly. Proverbs 23:23. I'm going to look that up. Got my Bible app phone. Bible phone app. Bible. It's loading. Go to Proverbs, chapter 23, verse 23. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. Okay, that's should be the watchword for every podcaster and citizen journalist. Do not buy truth, not sell truth, sell wisdom. Damn! That's great. Okay, where was I? We got a lot more to go through here. Colonel Tanner Watkins again. The CIA must get involved. Oh, they're involved, all right. Why would Trump be saying the CIA must get involved in a domestic terror event? Well, if you understand Operation Gladio, you know he just called out the CIA by saying, I see what you're doing. Because they've been doing this all over the world since 1948. Alpha Warrior is responding to a Donald Trump post on Truth Social. Trump says, our country is a disaster, a laughingstock all over the world. This is what happens when you have open borders with weak, ineffective, and virtually non-existent leadership. The DOJ, FBI, and Democrat state and local prosecutors have not done their job. They've done their job, just not the right one. They're incompetent and corrupt, having spent all their waking hours unlawfully attacking their political opponent, me, rather than focusing on protecting Americans from the outside and inside violent scum that has infiltrated all aspects of our government and our nation itself. Democrats should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen to our country. The CIA must get involved now before it's too late. The USA is breaking down. A violent erosion of safety, national security, and democracy is taking place all across our nation. Only strength and powerful leadership will stop it. See you on January 20th. Make America great again. So Trump is obviously very confident that we're going to make it to January 20th and that he'll be inaugurated. Now, what is the deep state's plan? Well, they had all sorts of plans, but Trump ruined them by simply surviving assassination attempts and making fools out of Biden and Kamala Harris. The deep states, the NWO, the criminal organization, whatever you want to call it. I like to say the Cabal because it's good catch-all, short, sweet term. The Cabal is running out of options. Right now, they're probably either looting and destroying the USA before they flee, thinking if we can't have a Trump, no one can, or they're going to try to delay Trump's certification on January 6th. I heard that from X22 report. Or they're going to try to make Trump's second term so impossible that he can't accomplish anything. From now to January 20th is when we need to really have our head on a swivel, be praying. If you need examples of prayers that actually are effective, go to the book of Psalms. A lot of those Psalms were written by David when he was either being persecuted or rising through the ranks of the army and becoming king of Israel and leading Israel as king. He had such a great success record because God was with him. David knew how to pray in agreement with God. So if you need examples of good prayers, look at the book of Psalms because a lot of them are written by David. And all the other Psalms were verified to be in agreement with God. So there's like Psalms for all sorts of different, situations. Even if they're thousands of years old, you can find things that are relevant today. That's the great thing about Scripture. Now, Alpha Warrior says this about the Trump post. Trump's latest Truth Social post isn't just another rant. There's more to it than meets the eye. A simple read might miss the deeper signals, but when you break it down, the hints and warnings start to reveal a potential game-changing message. January 20th, CIA involvement. Violent erosion of democracy. What's really being said here? Is Trump signaling something sooner than we expect? I have a full breakdown from my page script. Okay, so I'll be cautious about Alpha Warrior. I'm going to remember that name, Alpha Warrior, because they're not necessarily going along with Proverbs 23:23. Where was I? What do I have here? Okay, we've been going on a long while. I want to kind of start wrapping things up here, but I want to mention this here from Adam. Never forget that when WikiLeaks released over 500,000 U.S. diplomatic cables going back to 1979, Julian Assange came to one chilling conclusion. The CIA created ISIS. Wasn't it interesting? Wasn't it suspicious that ISIS originated right after Obama took office, fortified his own election, and undid all the work we did in Iraq? Wasn't it suspicious that ISIS was just so persistent and resilient and could not be taken out by Obama? But Trump comes in and the US military takes him out easily. Yeah, no one can actually take on the United States unless the United States is throwing the fight. There's an enemy within. Now, what else do I want to talk about? Before we do that, I have one more sponsor I want to promote to you. And that is myself. I have a online store called thesafecitizen.com. And it's taking some time loading, but it's an affiliate website. I find all sorts of cool products for self-defense. You got pepper spray, you got the sling bag. Yeah, the MTAC is my choice for a sling bag because it's got this, you can wear it like this. And I like to wear this when I'm driving Uber because, it's easy. I keep my Glock in here. And I keep my Gerber strong arm. It's a fixed blade knife. It's just long enough and high quality enough to fit in my sling bag. And what I like about the Gerber strong arm, what I like about the MTAC here is it's got this pull tab. If you can see here, it's got this pull tab for easy opening and easy draw in an emergency, in a self-defense situation. So I drive Uber. Right now, it's my full-time job. Like, I've had other gigs before, but whenever those gigs are slow, I fall back on Uber. In this environment, you gotta be armed. You gotta protect yourself. And I keep my gun in here. I keep my knife in here, and I keep some Saber brand pepper spray in here. And I pick these products because they're multi-purpose and they're a great value for the money. And I want you to be prepared and have the best, the best quality equipment for an affordable price. That's why I vet these products. So go ahead and click on the link to my safecitizen.com and click on any of these. I even refer you to the book Taekwondo by Grandmaster Richard Shun. I have a black belt in Taekwondo, and the only regret I have about starting Taekwondo was not starting sooner because it's just a very practical, efficient form of martial arts. You've got lots of different fanboys of different styles saying, "Oh, Taekwondo is just foot fencing." Well, sport Taekwondo is for foot fencing, Olympic, paintaway stuff, but traditional Taekwondo is legit. It's right up there with karate and Muay Thai. So, and this book is a very thorough explanation to get you started. Now, there's no substitute for a martial arts class with a qualified instructor, but this book is a great, backup. Is a great companion to that. Now, I want to talk about invasions here because we are being invaded, but not just by, the terrorists. Because everyone's a little foggy between Christmas and New Year's. But let me break it down. We are in the loot and treasury. We are in the loot, the treasury, and pardon all the criminals involved phase of the World War III instigation kicker. The Biden crime family is cleaning up. Truly one of the most disgusting periods in history. Yeah, that's what I said earlier, and I got it from DC Drano. He's exactly right. The bad guys are just looting what they can and grabbing what they can before they have to split. and they're trying to salt the earth, and trying to make this country unlivable for us who dared to reject them. DC Trano again says, remember when I said some Democrat cities are no-go zones? The common denominator seems to be a Soros-funded DAs and bail reform. So if you want to know whether your city is safe, yeah, just check to see who your DA is, who your judges are, and whether they were backed by George Soros. That's the rule of thumb. Don't necessarily panic and flee your city if you're in one of those cities, but just keep your cool, watch P's and Q's, and just don't panic and pray. Pete Santelli says, this is the most important urgent post I've ever made. Public outlining how Obama et al. Is responsible for the upcoming Al-Qaeda ISIS attacks upon America. Let's read this. Since 2012, when my source, codenamed Gandalf, who was on the ground 3 days after Benghazi, provided me with documented proof that Obama and Clinton were arming anti-Assad ISIS fighters in Syria, I've researched and established the following facts in very meticulous detail and provided sworn testimony affidavit under oath about my knowledge of the evidence that's currently in possession of the CIA's Office of Inspector General. Now, okay, this is quite a lot. Let's strap in here. Number one, Congress covered up Benghazi. I know this personally and firsthand because I delivered 3 audio recordings from 1 CIA and 2 FBI whistleblowers to a Dana Chipman, chief counsel for Trey Do-Nothing Gowdy's Benghazi Select Committee in October 2015. After being ghosted by Chipman, I was coincidentally set up by the FBI with false witness and indictment in January 2016 and held for 619 days as a political prisoner for covering up the Bundy protests. That would be the Bundy Ranch. Loretta Lynch signed off on my arrest warrant. On the eve of trial, when I informed the DOJ that my witness was going to testify that the FBI fabricated the whole entire story about me conspiring with the Bundys, I was dismissed from the Oregon trial. Number 2. Fox News was informed, yet never covered the story until they were forced to several months later. Fox News focused more on chasing down my sources for corroboration. Gandalf and the other sources had never been seen since. Based on my experience with Fox News, providing information to the FBI, I've always suspected that Fox News was feeding the FBI and CIA my information. All the information I provided about Operation Zero Footprint was published by Fox News, but not until after the CIA and FBI whistleblowers vanished from planet Earth. I was also blacklisted from appearances on Fox News, and my last live broadcast on Fox News was 2 weeks prior to my false indictment in January 2016. I sincerely believe Fox News worked with the CIA and FBI all along. Fox News is Mockingbird Media. And is one of the central reasons why the Bundy discovery documents remain under seal to this day. Here's the main info they covered up. John McCain was involved with Hillary Clinton, Obama, and General Petraeus in Benghazi to negotiate transfer of 400 tons of man-pads from Al-Qaeda in Libya to ISIS in Syria. I provided the actual manifest of the shipment, which left the Libya port on September 21st, 2012, to be delivered to Syria via Turkey. Anyone who tried to blow the whistle was killed, and I was falsely indicted and held in federal detention for 619 days. For a separate matter, of course, falsely accused of conspiring with the Bundys. But before I was released, submitted my audio recordings to DOJ prosecutors as exhibits I was going to use at trial. This whistleblower evidence of Obama funding ISIS remains under seal. So, number 3, John Brennan, former CIA director. John Brennan, A, allowed the 9/11 hijackers in the United States by overriding his assistant station chief in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and rubber stamping incomplete student visas. 9 of the hijackers entered the USA thanks to John Brennan. B, after his stint with the CIA, in 2005, Brennan entered the private sector to form the Analysis Corporation. He and James Clapper built a separate, parallel, private NSA with the most sophisticated surveillance technology on the planet, which was designed to go after our foreign enemies after 9/11. The system is housed in Fort Washington, Maryland, and essentially gave private contractors under Obama, Brennan, Clinton, Comey, Clapper, et al. Access to our most sophisticated surveillance and computer hacking technology. Here's why it matters today. Obama, Biden, Comey, Clinton, et al. Are still using Fort Washington, Maryland to this very day. For years, the FBI and CIA have been using child prawn servers to communicate operational orders worldwide and even operations against U.S. citizens on January 6th. Evidence of these facts, 47 plus hard drives, are reportedly still in protected evidence storage lock with the CIA's Office of the Inspector General. Note, if you wonder why the Navy SEAL Team 6 members were ambushed and killed on Extortion 17, just look up information they discovered at the compound in Islamabad, Pakistan during the fake Osama bin Laden raid. Pornography. Osama bin Laden was CIA and was already dead. Navy SEAL Team 6 members raided the compound to discover evidence of how child porn videos were used to communicate operational orders to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So CP is not just blackmail material, it's a communication method. Jesus. In August 2011, Navy SEAL Team 6 members, all but one, who were involved in the bin Laden raid, were all loaded onto a rundown Chinook, sent into an ambush, and shot out of the sky. The one surviving SEAL team member, Robert O'Neill, was given lots of cash and a book deal to run around telling the fake story about him killing bin Laden. He knows about the prawn recovery operation, but is playing along because of the big fat book deal they gave him. The video evidence of the raid is on the discs in possession of the Office of Inspector General, and it reportedly shows he had nothing to do with killing bin Laden. Bin Laden was dead well before they got here. He just probably burnt to a crisp by our bombs. Bin Laden was dead well before they got there. O'Neill was outright fraud and shill for the CIA, and there's video evidence submitted by a whistleblower to prove it. Someone please let him know I have all the serial numbers of the discs. Pete Santilli continues. Former intel operatives, military special forces operatives, federal law enforcement agents who've all been compartmentalized can read this post and determine A, the validity of this information that I have obtained through open source and whistleblowers, B, can connect the dots with information they have about our communication sources and methods pursuing foreign terrorists during the War on Terror. A read alert warning goes out to everyone on our side, active duty and retired. This system at Fort Washington, Maryland, has been used and weaponized against the American people. New Star has facilitated providing a terminal for Obama in the White House, and when Trump became president in 2017, they compromised White House servers, funneling everything to Obama, Clinton, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, et al. Via Fort Washington, Maryland. Real President Trump knows this, and he cited it in his RICO lawsuit against the deep state, listing New Star 79 times. 1 month after his lawsuit was filed, the FBI sought warrants to raid Mar-a-Lago. I knew they were after what he had. Pete Santilli continues. Man, this is good. I mean, it's evil, terrible, but this is very important. I'm glad I'm reading this. Since 2012, I have researched and collected data via open source and whistleblower testimony. Everything has been preserved and secured for the eventual prosecution of every one of these sick bastards. So secure that if they mess with me, kill me, etc., nothing will stop this from being made public. I submitted sworn affidavits to the federal court system, and I am ready, willing, and able to testify to the following. I have knowledge of and indisputable evidence that Obama, Clinton, et al. Have been funding and supplying Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and based on everything I'm learning from Sarah Adams and Sean Ryan's team, they're getting ready to kill many Americans in the biggest terrorist attack in world history. If Senator Kennedy wants transparency on the New Orleans terrorist attack organization, then he needs to have the FBI removed from the investigation. They've been part of the cover-up of supplying and funding ISIS since Benghazi. Transparency needs to begin with a simple question. Where did 400 tons of man-pads go after Benghazi? The answer to that question will unravel everything and help Kennedy discover how Obama was involved in facilitating attack upon his jurisdiction. One of many to come around the country in 2025. Now, Pete Santilli concludes saying, arrest Brennan now. Arrest Clinton now. Arrest Comey now. Shut down Fort Washington, Maryland now. But for starters, arrest all their minions like Jake Sullivan, Samantha Powers, Blinken, etc., and roll them for cooperative testimony. The head of the snake in the global war on terror is Obama and his minions. Even the members of ISIS and Al Qaeda will be pissed when they realize how compromised their communications are through Fort Washington, Maryland. If anyone wants to know which building the servers are housed in, please let me know. I have it all. And he's got an aerial photograph of Fort Washington. And it'd be nice to know what road that's on, what their USPS address is. So Peace Antilles thinks they've got a big 9/11 style terrorist attack planned for the U.S. And Trump is very confident we're going to make it to January 20th. And he's going to clean house. I trust Trump, but let's be prepared. Keep your head on a swivel. Paul Sperry says, developing. CT investigators tell me they're following leads. The Bourbon Street terrorist was radicalized at a pro-jihad Muslim Brotherhood mosque in North Houston that actively converts inmates inside the Texas Department of Corrections. Jabbar recently traveled to Brotherhood HQ, Cairo. What happened to Cairo during the Obama administration? The Arab Spring. They overthrew the government and installed something else. How much you want to bet that was a color revolution? Another CIA coup. Breaking news from Papa Bear. A massive crowd of Hamas supporters has taken over downtown Manhattan, New York City, calling for a global intifada. 12 hours from the tragedy in New Orleans and Las Vegas, these people are doing this. Do they have no shame? The enemy is already here, so yeah, I'm not going to play that sound. Fuck no. And it's not just terrorists and radical Islam in this country. You probably heard about all the migrant attacks in Europe, in the UK. You know, the war in Syria. I've never understood the exact cause of it or reason why Assad was rebelled against so bad. You know, Assad is not a good guy himself. I know that much. He's a member of the Ba'athist Party, which is the same party as Saddam Hussein. They're like a version of the communists, but the rebels weren't good guys either. They were Al Qaeda, ISIS, whatever. As best as I can figure, the war in Syria was a pretense for pumping Europe full of Middle Eastern refugees. And by refugees, I mean invaders, because one of the Cabal's favorite tactics is mixing in evildoers among innocent, law-abiding individuals. Terrorist invaders mixed in with refugees. It's what's been happening on our U.S. border. Asylum seekers mixed in with criminal invaders. It's what happened with BLM inside all the demonstrations against police brutality. It's what happens with PDF files mixed in with the LGBT community. Like, we want to have compassion for anyone who's born different. But the PDF files and the maps are using that community as a Trojan horse to do their evil deeds. Same thing with the refugees in Europe. I should say migrants. Now, Elon Musk has dove into the topic of migrants in the UK, and he has this to say. In the UK, serious crimes such as rape require the Crown Prosecution Service's approval for the police to charge suspects. Who was the head of the CPS when rape gangs were allowed to exploit young girls without facing justice? Keir Starmer from 2008 to 2013. Keir Starmer, the supposed Prime Minister of the UK currently. No way that election wasn't fortified. I mean, I saw the numbers. I reported on them. The majority of actual votes went to Nigel Farage's party, but the majority of actual seats won in Parliament went to Labour. How does that work? They were very open about this. Apparently, Some votes count more than others? Libs of TikTok is responding to this video by Don Keith. 250,000 young British white girls have been raped in the last 25 years, largely by Muslim men. Tommy Robinson is persecuted badly. Yeah. Great Britain, the United Kingdom, has been taken over, and not recently. Julie Green keeps saying that the royal family is not the real royal family. That King Charles is not the real king. Great Britain has been taken over by a cabal that's bringing in these monsters to violate their own people. There's an enemy within the UK, within lots of governments, within lots of countries in Europe, and in Canada, in the US, and Australia, everywhere in the Christian world. When we say the Western world, we really mean the Christian world. Countries where Christianity is mainstream. Christianity is the real target of all this evil, and Judaism. The Jews and the Christians are God's people. If you wonder why Jews don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, you need to read Romans chapter 11. Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 11. Paul was, a Jew. He had been a Pharisee before he was a Christian. He understood the Jewish, the Israelite scripture front and back. His Jewish bona fides were secure, were real. He understood why, and he explains in Romans chapter 11. It's in the Bible. It's in the Christian Bible. It's in the New Testament. Read it. Now, the kingdom of God scares the cabal because it's the only true, legitimate one world regime. God's kingdom supplants all other kingdoms. There ought to be, there's people ought to have their own countries and their own governments. We all ought to be have localized government because there's no government other than God's kingdom that has a one size fits all situation for every culture, environment, geography, whatever, what have you. In the U.S., we have a federal system of government. The country is divided into 50 states, each with their own government, their own ways of doing things, but still under the framework of the U.S. Constitution and the federal system. No other country ought to be controlling another one unless they have a Bill of Rights and a system that honors the rights of the sovereign individual. But there's a criminal organization, might be run by the Jews, but they're very inclusive. It appears that's trying to enslave us. We have enslaved. It's even worse enslavement than what the Israelites experienced in Egypt because we didn't know we were enslaved, but we are waking up. Information is going to be our biggest asset. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, so we need to all have eyes of our own. I would argue that information is more important than being armed, but being armed is also very critical. So that's why I practice with my Glock. I practice my martial arts, and I conceal carry. I'm very fortunate to live in a state that has constitutional carry laws and castle doctrine. But in truth, there are no legitimate gun laws in the United States. The Second Amendment says, a militia being necessary to defend the country, the right to bear arms should not be infringed. Who is a militia? It's the whole of U.S. citizenry. I can't remember who's in that exactly, but I think it's in the Federalist Papers, or it's in the it was in the committee from the Declaration of Independence. But you are a sovereign individual. You are a king. You are one of God's children. You are made in the image of Almighty God. Act like it. Listen to affirmations if you need to. Read in the scripture if you need to. But you have a right to life. You have a right to dignity. And we've been abused for so long by individuals with really sick minds. Even in our own lives, we might have abusive, we might have toxic workplaces, we might have toxic relationships, we might have toxic families. It's time to understand how these toxic individuals operate and expose them. If we can't expose them directly, we set up conditions where they expose themselves, which is really what President Trump has done. When he pretended to step down in January 2021, he set the Cabal up to expose themselves, and that's what we've seen the last 4 years. Now, we are very soon approaching the justice phase, and you need to get ready. So I will let you go. Like I said, if you want to support the program, you can join my locals page. You can help yourself to some Blackout coffee. Definitely get the Dry Fire Mag, and look up safecitizen.com and avail yourself. Because I don't just choose products and services just to make money. I choose products and services to promote because I feel like they're a benefit to my audience. So with that, I will let you go. I'm Nate Hausman, letting you know, more than ever, it's okay to stand up for yourself. Over and out.